One of your fellow senators, Lindsey Graham, suggested we do, in fact, drop some bombs on them.
Yeah.
What do you thought?
I think that we need calm hands as commander-in-chief, and I think it's one of the reasons people chose President Trump. President Trump said during the campaign that the Iraq War was a mistake and that he wasn't going to get us involved in many of these, long-standing wars. In fact, he said during the campaign, he said as president, he's going to try to end the war in Afghanistan. I'm all with him. In fact, I'm promoting an amendment right now that would end the Afghan war over a one-year period and give every one of our soldiers a $2,500 bonus for serving over there. And people mistake, they think, oh, the soldiers all love going to Afghanistan. Guess what? Talk to the guys that have been 7 and 8 tours over there. Many of them are 30s, 40s, have children at home and wives at home. They'll do it, but they want to believe that there is actually a mission left in Afghanistan and that they're not doing peacekeeping or nation building over in Afghanistan.
Senator, that drone costs somewhere around $250 million. How do we get them to pay for that?
Well, I think the question is, how do we try to avoid, having war over there, and how do we avoid having them have nuclear weapons? I think payment for something, for damaging someone's property is one reasonable. The Arab world actually does do that often, have sort of recompense for damages. But I think the real question is we have to decide how to get out of this impasse. Iran perceives the sanctions right now as an embargo. The sanctions we had on previously for a decade had a little bit of an exemption where oil could come from Iran and go to Asia, India, China, South Korea, and Japan. We're still able to buy Iranian oil. And now we've pretty much squeezed that off completely. And so the question is, how do we get back to some sort of diplomacy?
How do you get them to abide by what they've already agreed to stop enriching uranium to the point where it's a bomb material?
That's exactly the rub. But here's what they say to us. Well, you guys pulled out of the agreement. You want us to obey the agreement that you pulled out of. You see, they've got confusing messages. And here's what I would have done. I agree with the president that we shouldn't have given them all the money up front. That was the carrot. They got all the money, they gobbled all the money up, and then we have to sort of trust them on compliance over time. And there may not be the verification that we really need for compliance, but they were complying. But the carrot's already been given. The money's already been given. I would have stayed in the agreement and tried to get an additional agreement. Instead, we got out of the nuclear agreement, and now we want a nuclear and a ballistic. So we made our problems so much harder. We had a nuclear agreement. They weren't enriching and still aren't, but now they're threatening to because we left the agreement. So you see what I mean? Their perspective is that we were not trustworthy.
That's hindsight. Now, we know Israel, at one point, Iran did the same thing, and Israel actually bombed their capabilities to make a nuclear weapon. Is it time, if they don't stop enriching, do we go ahead and physically, militarily stop them from enriching?
Well, I think that you could delay their nuclear program. I think you can probably
without military.
No. I think if you were to take the military option, I think you can delay their nuclear program but not destroy it. I think it's in many different places, and some of it is probably in hardened areas where you can't actually destroy it. If you do that, though, let's say tomorrow you send the planes and the bombs and you unleash 1,000 bombs on Tehran and you disable some of their nuclear missiles. Do you think they're just going to sit and take that? No, I think what would happen is they would destroy hundreds of ships in the Gulf. And I think then what happens is Saudi Arabia then responds and says, "The hell with this, we're going on." And there would be no contemplation by Iran of not having a nuclear program. We would set them back, and then they would go full force into a nuclear bomb. Then what does Saudi Arabia do? They go full force into it. See, the thing's a powder keg and has been for hundreds and hundreds of years. And we just have to be careful about, I think we should not go headlong into military attack on Iran without fully thinking about what the ramifications are.